Sarjakuva ry ja sarjakuvakehitystyössä 2 tuntia workshoppia. Leif Packalén voi esitellä oman porukkaansa ja tämän jälkeen sitten kello 3 on Ilpo Koskela, joka esittelee sarjakuvatekijän kohdasta. Ja sitten oli vielä täällä pikku Lumon lukion oppilaat, niin tehkää muistiinpanoja kaikista esityksistä. Kiitos.
Ladies and gentlemen, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, close like this. This few hours now in the afternoon we are going to talk about comics in development. Now, my name is Leif Packalén, and I am the chairman of the organization World Comics Finland, which works with introducing comics in different types of development projects or in development work. Now, development work mainly is different types of projects, and in most projects there is always an element of communication. Now, our solution to this communication problem has been comics. There are 2 different types that we are going to talk about today. Something which is called grassroots comics, which is made by community activists themselves, not by professional artists. And then we have here Frank Odoi from Ghana, but resident in Kenya, who is one of the more accomplished artists, comics artists in Africa, who is doing what is called campaign comics. That is comics for a large mass communication campaign. But first, let us go through the idea of grassroots comics. So, is it possible to get a little bit less light here?
Se näkyy kyllä ihan hyvin.
No, I don't know.
We can see it fine.
You can see it fine.
Yes.
Then let's not touch it because you never know what happens. All right. We say grassroots comics is a versatile communication tool. When you think of comics, you are not always thinking of it as a communication tool, but that is what it is. It's visual storytelling. Now, how grassroots comics, what it is, what is the concept and how it goes, it's like this. Grassroots comics are made by community activists with non-governmental organizations and not by professional artists. And it is used mainly for in local distribution. That is, it's not a mass communication medium, and it's linked always, I would say, to some sort of non-governmental organization activity. And it's using either photocopying or simple printing. Now, in comics, what is important is the story, not the drawing. And this is something we repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat in all our workshops. Right, this is how you go about it. You take a sheet of photocopying paper, you draw a box on one side, add one more, prepare one more page like that, then you turn the lower until the boxes face each other, and then you join them. This is the basic idea of a wall poster comic. Now, it's this. 2 A4s make 1 A3. It's big enough to be understood as a poster, and you can make it by and you can make it by A4 copying, which is available almost everywhere where you have electricity. So it is a communication tool that can be used by organizations with very, very little money. Right. Now, when you have the two A4s, then you make a story into the 4 panels. You put on a heading and a slogan or a signature. Then that will be it. Now, this is the basic idea, and it's simple. The technology is not complicated, and it's easy for people to grasp it, and that is why it is so easy also to teach to people. Here, when you say, okay, let me teach you how to make comics, people think that you have to study for several years. Yes, depends on what kind of comics you are making. Grassroots comics you can learn to do in 2 days. Now, this is how you do it. First, you think about the story, which has a message which you think is important. And also you have to have an idea of to whom you want to tell that story. So the idea, like what you want to say, and then to whom you want to say that specific message is like something you have to have clear in your head before you start making your stories. And believe me, everybody has opinions, everybody has something to say, and everybody has something that they think is important. But everybody has not understood that you can put your message through with a comic. But this is what we are trying to help them with. All right, when you think of a story, you take a paper, you divide it in 4 parts. Then you number the parts. Then you give your story a heading. And you write your story into this grid. And then you read it through, you make changes, you compact, you think about it thoroughly. And then you have your story, you make a visual manuscript. Why we have asked people to make this, to write their story into this cross grid is that when you write your story, then you have it visually in your face all the time that you need to put your story into 4 parts. And that is like before we used to say, okay, create your story, write it down, and then afterwards you should divide it into 4 parts. Okay. Now, very often the stories were very long and complicated, so it was always a question of compacting the story. Until we started this thing of write your story into the grid, because then automatically or much more easier your stories are of the right length. Now, you have your story in 4 parts, and then you make a visual script. And the visual script, here you can see on the right side, it's rough sketches of the images, and then you write out the dialogue and explanation in the right places. And this is an important step, because here you do the main thinking of what goes into your comic. And in our workshops, we spend much time with this part. And it's important also to make this visual sketch in a small format, because if you make it in a bigger format, then people tend to to work too much with the images, go into all kind of very, very small details, which is not really necessary. And then, when you have your visual script and everything ready, then you start to do the actual drawing. The final artwork, which you first make with a pencil sketch, then you ink the lines of the pencil sketch, and then you erase the pencil lines, and then you finish finish the comic. Now, as you realize, we have broken down the process of making comics into small steps, and none of the steps seem to be like too difficult. And because many people think that when you make comics, you make an empty box and then you start drawing into it. But that is not so. You must have the whole plan before you start drawing. That's one of the keys in the method of grassroots comics. Wherever you do it, and we say, okay, now you are ready for the photocopying machine. Now either you have a photocopying machine or you go to a photocopy shop like this one in Burundi. And then you prepare the comics for distribution. Now you have, if you put the comics up inside somewhere, then you just tape them to 2 A4s with normal cello tape or normal tape. But if you paste them on a wall, like at the water pump or at the shop or somewhere, then you can glue them directly on the wall. Now in India, it is necessary to glue them quite high, like higher than this, because they are using a glue with wheat flour in it, and if you put them lower, then the goats will come and eat the comics. That you don't want. Of course, the photocopying machine man is to say, yeah, it's okay. Right, and then you put them up in strategic places. You can think of a village or a small town that has maybe 10,000 people living there. Then you can be okay with you're putting up 5 comics in strategic places. You will reach most of those people. And why will you reach most of the people? Everyone who understands that this is something that has been put up by a local organization or a local activist, they will think that, well, they must go and see what it is. People are quite used to things like they have the government is sending all kind of propaganda and all kind of posters and this kind of thing, and they are not very keen on them. But everything that is made by local people is more interesting, and they are certain to have a look at it. Okay, you can put them anywhere where it is allowed, and that is an important thing. You should not create enemies by putting up comics on places where you are not allowed. And it's not a big problem to get people to accept that your comics are being put up. Right, now let us see a few samples of how these wall poster comics have been used in Africa. There's a Christian youth organization in Tanzania, and here you can see 2 A4s pasted on the wall. This was an HIV AIDS campaign. Now, an organization for the disabled, there were people who were physically handicapped, you have deaf people, and then albinos who were taking part in a workshop in Mwanza, and they were making comics about their own rights. And it was a rather successful campaign. Now, in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, there is something, Gender Network, Tanzania Gender Network program. They were making comics about about women's issues, and women's issues, let's say women's rights. And the Peace and Human Rights Organization in Burundi, where we started working last year, they were making comics about the Hutu-Tutsi problem, and about women's rights, and then land rights. Burundi is a very, very tightly populated area, and so there's a lot of problems with land use. That's the same organization. And then in Somaliland, there's an organization called Candlelight that is using these comics against, campaigning against the practice of female genital mutilation. We have not been there ourselves, but the people that we have trained were running this workshop. This is very much how we work nowadays. We train trainers. And here you can see this is from the workshop. This is where they are making drawing exercises. Right, in Mozambique, there's a teacher training college where we trained in 2005 30 trainers, and then a few years later they had trained 60 more trainers, and they are running workshops all over Mozambique. And that's, yes, from Mozambique. Here you can see this is a human rights organization in Namatanda. They use these comics, they laminate them. You can see they are, there's some plastic there. And when they go to the village and they have some sort of presentation, or they are talking there, then they bring these laminated comics there, and then when they go to the next village, they take them along. And what was interesting here with this laminating thing is that, of course, it makes the comics more durable. So they are just photocopies, but they did not have a laminating machine that they had one in the capital, but they were using these plastic sheets which you laminate in the machine and with an iron, and that was something we hadn't seen before. And I tried it myself. It's very, very difficult, but when you do it, when you ruin about 4 or 5, then you get the knack of it. This is from a secondary school in Beira, and the kids are making comics about issues, prostitution and the behavior against women, like the main issue there. And they put these comics up in the school, in the halls where you have groups, and they change these comics maybe once per month or so. And then we have the African Movement for Working Children and Youth, which is a big organization in many West African countries. We trained trainers there. They went to Niamey in Niger, and Bamako in Mali. And then NFC Nieta, an environmental NGO in Bamako. And Hedy will say a few words about that later. And then Action Aid in Yei in Sudan about democracy. So that is Africa, which we are now concentrating on. We have been working quite a lot in Asia also, mainly in India. And then from India it has spread to Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Lebanon. I'll go quickly through this. This is a girl child campaign in Rajasthan, India. And strengthening participation organization, where you get women to work in to participate in the community work, and that's quite rare. They were making comics. They're like the first time they had done anything actively to their own community. And this is from Kathmandu. A lot of students for social studies and mass communication have started making this type of comics. In Oxfam, there was Oxfam had a campaign in Sri Lanka where they were talking about against violence of the women. Okay, now we are getting a message from the sponsor. Your time is out. Right. And then with the Palestinian refugee organization in Lebanon, we started a project work there together with the Finnish psychologists, and we had one workshop there, but then all our attempts to continue with the work were in vain, because there was the war with Israel, and there was these attacks against Naril, Bahrain camp later on. So we haven't been there since 2005, but they are still going on there. To end this expose, I'll say something about World Comics in Finland and in Europe. We have we are an organization that mainly work with development projects. That is our like 80%, 90% of what we do. But since this method became known here in Finland, also organizations here in Finland that are working in Finland requested to get training to work. So here are some samples on what has been done in Finland. Now, a big project is the Youth Academy, Nuorten Akatemia. They are running 3 and 4 hour grassroots comics workshop on globalization issues and development issues. By now in already more than 200 schools. That started in 2009 and goes on up to 2012. I think in total there will be more than 350 by the end of the project. And Heidi's going to say something about that later. Now, we have also been working with asylum-seeking children in Espoo, but we stopped that, we did that for 3 years. But it was a center where they changed the children all the time, so there was no long-term involvement there, so we didn't continue with that. We also had a workshop with Sami activists in Rovaniemi, and with climate change activists here in Finland, and with the senior citizens group in Vantaa. That was quite an interesting venture. And quite a lot we have been training youth workers and teachers in the grassroots comics method. Then we have been working with HIV/AIDS campaigners in Latvia, and also with immigrant children in Sweden. Now, about grassroots comics, there is a book written by myself and co-authored by Sharat Sharma, my Indian colleague. It's unfortunately out of print, but it is available as a PDF file on our website. Now, we have been working in these countries: Tanzania, Mozambique, Burundi, Benin, Morocco, Lebanon, and India. And in 2 weeks' time, we will have the first workshop in Kenya, where we will train comics trainers for the NGO community. So this is like what World Comics Finland is doing, and the essential things about the grassroots comic method. And we have a slogan, World Comics, nothing less, comics power always. Right, this was the initial presentation, and if there are some questions, what we plan to do is that I'll show you a video, I'll show you another presentation, and then we have presentation from other people, and after that we will have like a panel discussion. You can pose questions to any of the participating people. But if you have some direct question that you would like to pose right now, we can take one or two. Please.
I would like to ask about the use of the word comic in the context of all these serious questions. Have you ever had any reactions from people that why do you call these comics if they're not funny?
Yes, it is a valid point that we found it a little bit hard to say that sequential storytelling, or if we say visual storytelling or something like that, because it's hard for people to understand. Comics people understand, but we said these are not normal kind of comics. These are comics made by ordinary people about the issues they think are important. So it's not, it is a problem, but it's not nothing that we cannot work with. I mean, because nowadays all comics are not funny, and even these comics made by people, they are sometimes funny too in the local context. So we understand it as a problem, but it doesn't really affect us much anymore. We are so used to it already. Any other question? No. Okay, you're welcome. And in here, I will show you another. This one is a bit short. On what happens, we usually run workshops, and in order to produce these comics, and we have manuals now in English, French, Portuguese, Arabic, Somali, Swahili, Kirundi, Hindi, Urdu, and Finnish, yes. 10 in 10 languages. Okay, in the workshops, I'm just showing quickly what happens in the workshop. First, we start with an introduction to the medium, so people understand that this comics is like a medium, and then we are showing samples from different groups similar to their own, so that everybody in the workshop can understand that yes, if that person has made these comics, even I can do. Because many people think they cannot make comics because they are afraid of drawing. Then we say, okay, do you have some stories? Can you make a story on something that is important? Yes, of course. But drawing is the problem. But the problem we overcome by doing very simple drawing exercises. Like this. You say, this is a stick figure, then you put some clothes on it, and you erase the stick. That's the first. When people do this, they realize it's not that difficult, really. Then we are making expression, facial expression, happy expressions, and then different types of expression. That's also a lot of fun. And people gain confidence very quickly. And yes, they can draw well enough. Because these are people, unlike many of you, these are people who are social activists. They don't have artistic ambition as such. They don't think it is important to draw very well. It's well enough if they can draw so that somebody can understand what is there. So it's only people who are like keen on drawing well and have an artistic ambition that they will never be happy. You can ask anybody who is drawing, they are never satisfied with their drawing. Am I right? I say yes.
No.
No, you are satisfied often. That's nice. Good. Then, when we have made these few drawing exercises, then we have a discussion like what is important. What is the group who is at the work? What do they think is? Which are the themes that should be addressed? And then in the discussion there are themes, and then you think of messages and the targets. So it is clear for the people that what the comics will be about and to whom they are intended. And then you say, okay, then you make the stories, and they discuss the stories, and they have like principal characters. They have an idea what the stories will be about, and then comes an important thing. The stories are read out loud, so that all the people in the group will hear them and will understand what it is, and then they will be commented. Because these are joint efforts in many ways. I mean, if you have a community group that is working with women's rights, and you have decided, yes, let's make comics about that, and then somebody is making something else, the women will say, no, you must make this as we agree. So there is this sort of the control of the group and the joint idea of what you are doing in the workshop. Then comes the part of actually make them into a visual script, like a storyboard. And then the visual script, we have resource teams, that is like who is running the workshop. They will be then going through the storyboards and and check them for readability. We have these two: the relation of text to picture, order of reading, and then clarity of content. These three things is enough. If they are okay, then the comic is okay. Now, another cornerstone is that the resource persons, the ones who are running the workshop, should not influence the stories too much. Concentrate on the readability. Because if you are, like I did it once, if you are saying to somebody who is proposing a story, and you say, okay, now this is a very good story, but why don't you make the principal character a woman? That will bring out the idea of that women can also do this thing. Now, I remember the look that lady gave me. It comes back to me sometimes in my nightmares. Then I realized, no, that in order for people to stand behind their stories, you should not meddle with it. And when we train trainers, we are very strict on this, because easily when you are an instructor, you think you know everything. But if you are an outsider, you know what you know, but not about the place and the culture and everything that is in the place where you are a visitor. So influence should be concentrated on readability and this type of issues. Okay, then the artwork, it's a pencil. Artwork begins with a pencil sketch, and then each participant should receive receives individual instruction in the inking process, because this is something new. People have been drawing, but inking the drawing is something else, and it's best to show it to each individual separately. And now if you have a workshop with 20 people, it's possible to do. It's not so complicated. And then after the inking is dried, the pencil lines are erased, and then you can correct mistakes. Copying, and then critique and feedback. Now, like everything is important, but this is particularly important that this will be the first time then when everybody will look at one comic and then discuss it in detail. So you should not rush this issue. And then take them out. And in the workshop we are asking people to go with their comics, put them on the wall, and then come back with 5 opinions on their own comics. And it is sometimes amazing what people say about these comics. And it is the direct reader response to these people who put up their first comic on the wall. So it is, as everything else, very important. And then evaluation of the workshop is important for the organizers. Last but not least, group photograph. This is what happens at a regular comics workshop. Right. Are there any questions you would like to ask now? Oh, everything is very clear. Oh, that's nice. Then let us just look at the 2-minute video from Burundi. And I think we have the sound working, and then we go to... So in 3 days, people who have never done comics before are taught to do it, and it works. Wonderful. So this is the organization we are cooperating with in Burundi. And we trained 18 trainers, and they have now been running workshops for about a year there. And these were the first test workshops they were running. These are from pictures from test workshops. Somebody took their baby along. So, if you have something to say, you can say it in the comments. Right. Okay, now you have been sitting for 45 minutes. Before we go to the next step, you have to stand up and do a little bit of comics yoga. This we are having in our workshops. After each 45 minutes, we say, okay, now yoga time. And you start like this. You put up your hands. Then you take a cloud. The cloud is much higher, so go on your toes. On your toes. Now you got it. Then you take it to the side. Yes, I'm taking it to the side, to the side, to the side. Oh, yes, but the cloud is pulling you back. Ah, but then you go to the left side. To the left side. Yeah, but the cloud is pulling you back. Now we are showing who is who. And take, okay, cloud, now you go to the floor. Then you keep the cloud down for 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then you let the cloud go. And if this is where you are drawing, then we stretch the, what we say, the drawing muscle. Take your hand, put it so as far as possible to the right, then your left hand as far as possible to the left. And then you turn your hands 90 degrees, and then you keep it there until it stops hurting. Yeah. All right, then you can do like this. This stretches the drawing muscle. You have to loose drawing. Good. Now, let me. This is like the beginning of the presentation, and now we have a few people who have been actively engaged in World Comics work, and we are now asking them. Let me first present Tarmo Koivisto, who has been working with us in Tanzania and in India, and then Katja Tukiainen, yes, who's been working with us in India. Then Leif, who has been working, well, not with us, but by herself in Mali, but she is very active in the Finnish work, Finnish school work. And then we have His Excellency Frank Odoi, who has been working with us for 20 years, but mainly not with the grassroots comics, but with the professional campaign comics. Good. I'm asking now Tarmo to come, and I'll work the machine, and he'll have to talk himself. Joo, se tulee. Joo.
Yeah. Okay, hey everybody. My English is a little rusty, but I try anyway. Asking help if I need. Before yes. I have been in 3 trips with Leif and somebody else in Africa and India, as Leif said. And before I tell anything about these, I like to say what it all started. Leif and I met a few years earlier, before the first trip. It happened 94.
Well,
something like that.
In the early 90s.
Yeah. And Leif had a message from the card. I think it's from his earlier experiences from Africa and elsewhere about this comic issue. Is it in general possible to use it as a media in cooperation work in Africa, India, anywhere, developing countries? And he asked me what is my opinion. I said, well, why not? But with one exception, it is needed to do with the local artists, with the local culture of making pictures and perhaps comics. Even if they have any culture, they have to create it themselves. We can't tell them how to draw local comics and what is right and what is wrong with it. So Leif agreed, and on that basis we started with these workshops. And the first one was in Tanzania, Morogoro. Perhaps there, His Excellency. It has signed 93. Yeah, now I know. So we had there with us Frankie boy from Kenya, coming from Ghana. And then we had Katja Tukiainen, local artist who had a background as a comic artist already. And James Kaya, who seemed to be kind of boss later on, but he was student at that time in our workshop. So he is from India. Oh, take it away. So we traveled from Dar es Salaam to Morogoro, and we had a workshop there. It was something like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, 4 days.
And Leif had invited something like 20-25 young artists. Most of them were already publishing drawings, but it seemed that almost nobody had used comics in their work. It was quite a new thing for everybody. And then our task was speak about the basics of comics, how to do it, what is the question about it. And then we shortly went through the history of comics and with examples from Western world mainly. And then we went through the profession of comic artist in our experiences. And copyright problems and things which were very unknown, most of them, even if they were publishing artists already. Then we went through contract issues, and of course there were rehearsals, exercises and things like that. And then we had some role games where we tried to cheat the young artist when he comes to the office where is a representative from international funder, local organization, and a consult, some businessmen perhaps. And it was quite fun because they already had some experiences and they were being cheated, most of them, some of them perhaps. And then in the end, I think we founded Tapoma organization, Tanzania Popular Media Association, like a Finnish Comic Society in basics. Okay, it was that, and it succeeded so well that in the last more than 3 years when we went back. And this is from the next in the next workshop. It was good idea. Yeah. It was something like 4 days. Again, there were quite many the same guys. Some had been earlier workshop, and then there were a lot of young artists, 2 and 1 girl or young woman.
2, yeah.
2.
Yeah.
I should remember. Anyway, we continued with those issues we already had there, and then we had a lot of trainings in drawing, croquis drawing and material drawing and landscapes and simplifying, corrugating, and so on. And continued with basics of comics. And then in the night before supper we had a general critic. And there we had first time the personal evaluation of based on their sample works. And I think it was quite useful. Right. And then first time we tried to get contacts with the local and some international organizations situated in Morogoro or in Dar es Salaam. And it succeeded. Some came there and gave a lecture who spoke about themselves. And then first time we had this booklet promotion. It was created by Katja, I think, the idea how to make from A4 shape photocopy paper a little booklet in 8 pages or 16 pages by bending them many times and then pushing a knitting through
Staple, yeah.
Staple, yes. And it was a great innovation. Okay, this is Robert Motuemba's side on me. My English was even worse than it's now. And of course I must consider first before saying anything. So that was the result. Gladly I could draw something anyway. And it was the starting of that workshop. We had to move from the place to other. And in next place was in Tamil Nadu, in Ghanaian place where all the participants were activists in different organizations. They were very eager, very keen, and very bright, hardworking, and glad people, because they had a mission in this world to change the society more or better anyway. And there we started again with the basis comics, and then we had a special issue for Dalit problems. That means the outcast people, and I think all the participants were outcast people.
Yeah.
And the stories they told about and the draw about this situation was shocking to Western people who came from democracy and thought that everything is quite nice anyway in the world. It is not. And later on we have even worse stories. So that was the only time I was in India. Katja has been there several times and played even more. And the last, this was our resource person, that Packalén, and he has been with us later, with you later on.
Yeah.
He's a artist. And in the end there is a interpreter, that one. It took 2 days before we started to wonder if he understands anything what we are saying. Anyway, perhaps he had no words in that language in fact to translate. No, anyway, I think it went quite well.
Yes.
Even if my stomach was like afterwards, like I was sweating twins or something like that. And the last workshop was in Morogoro, 04. And Morogoro, by the way, it was in Dar es Salaam, not in Morogoro.
Yeah.
That's right. My mistake. And there was Ville Tietäväinen with me and Leif. And the main purpose was trainers there. So we had a test group, and when we have trained trainers, they try to train the test group, and we gave a critics and so on. And after I have
It's okay.
used more time as I have in my use. But I think that my experience is that these workshops and what has happened after that has shown that comic is a media for these problems and the voice of problems and ordinary people, like song or literature or poetry or theater or anything else media. It suits to people who can't draw but who have something to tell. Thank you.
All right. Don't go anywhere because we are going to ask questions soon. So
No.
I'm sitting in front. Yes. All right. Well, if you go over there. Yes, there it is. Okay, and then I will invite Katja, who has been working at several workshops in India, and you want me to push one? Yes.
Hey, me in English. I'm Katja Tukiainen, visual artist, I'm a painter and a comic artist, and I'm touched by the comic card as well. Should I sit down? So, you know, I want to tell you that I got the Packalén. It's the biggest Finnish comic prize from Finnish Comic Association. I don't remember what year. I got the state prize from Finnish government for a first comic artist, a huge amount of money. I don't remember what year, but I remember what year I went to India to teach comics. So that was like 1999, and it changed my life. So this is kind of religious talk I'm gonna give. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, it's really important, and once you get it, you can't forget it. Like, I come now from Tove Jansson's atelier. Have you ever been there? Do you all know who is Tove Jansson? Who doesn't know? Anyway, her atelier is in the studio is in the Korkeavuoren or something like that, and I was there first time now, giving some interviews for foreign journalists, and I realized that I grew up with comics, Karl Barks, Tove Jansson, and I never realized that I could a little bit change the world with them. That you really can do something with the comics that you give your amount, if you are an artist, you don't have any money, but you can give your work and you can change the world. You can do so important things that it's amazing. So Leif wants to me now to be serious.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, so I went there and I asked Leif. Now he asked me to give this short talk, and I said that I want to show these from year 99 because they touched me so much, and I haven't seen them for a while, but I show you this one. Where's the lazy boys? You can see in the first panel there's 3 boys who are trying to learn the alphabets. The 3 small dark dots, they are the heads. And then in the second panel they have kind of school uniforms, and they are saying like, oh, this is so boring to be here in the school, so let's go away, let's run away. But one of the boys is staying in the school, and in the end the 2 lazy boys has become a normal peasants.
Yeah.
And they have the moustache, like everybody in India, they have a moustache. But the third one who stayed in school, he's a cool guy. He has the white collars, and he's a doctor or something, and he's very chic. He doesn't have the moustache because he's the city man. And then they were clicked that, oh, why we didn't stay in the school. So this is the normal way they want to create the stories what they think they are important. And if there's some humor, it's extra. But the thing is that they really want to tell that why it's so important to be in the school, or not humiliate the Dalits or this kind of things. So that's what we want to encourage them to do, that to keep on in their issues and don't shift those issues to anything we are asking. And then this is for everyone, even in Western world. Don't go to home and drink too much and smoke in the bed, otherwise. Help me. And this is Tanuskodi's work from 99. She was 16, and you can see that it looks like the Finnish 6-year-old drawing, but it doesn't matter because we get the messages in Tamil language. And in the first panel, the girl is saying like, I'm going out now, just for having a walk. And in the second panel, the man is coming and humiliating the girl, like he said something inappropriate. And Tanuskodi was thinking hardly how to show that what the guy is saying, but she didn't want to write that because it was something not proper language. So she invited those lines that what is coming from the mouth of this swearing or something. And in the third panel, the girl takes the power and she is giving back the same thing. And in the last panel, the police officer is coming, and he has written that the girl even like is giving a small hit like this. But it was very hard to draw. And I didn't want to help her in that way, that I would draw on her paper, even she asked me, because that's not the way. But then we decided that here is written that the girl also hits it. The guy at the police said, good girl. So this is really, really strong girl power thing from South India. And the last one is maybe the most touching one, in a way that in the first panel there is the tax collector going in the village, and in the second panel the girl is saying for the other village man that I want to give her the garland for the tax collector like to welcoming gift. And in the third panel the village man is telling to the girl that you can't do that because you are an outcast girl, that you can't touch the tax collector man. And in the last panel, the tax collector says to the village man that she can because he's a Dalit outcast person too. So it's a story about how outcast Dalit can study and get the proper job. And then it's the story about the prejudices, how it's limited what the outcast person can do or not can do. And there's a deep meaning if you put that story on the wall of the village, that the village people will read it and start to talk about it. How is this taboo thing? Is it still influencing in the living, so in the people who are living in the villages? And thanks. Was it too depressing?
I have to go elsewhere.
Good luck. So we are trying to take these taboo issues on the lips of the people, that they start to talk about those things, and slowly they will change, and we have to believe on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Katja. Very rightly she said, the end product of what we do is not the comics on the wall, it's the discussion, the debate they create. Now I invite Packalén, who
Leif has prepared these for us.
I see.
okay, take the
On one of them,
use one
on
of
the
them.
pale one there.
It's quite easy to see where I am. Okay, it's just to say that the first picture was from workshop in Mali. I will come just very shortly to that later on. Yes, I came to tell about my experience with the Finnish young people in Finnish schools. I've been conducting some workshops for classes in Finnish schools during the previous few years. And as Leif already mentioned, this project was cooperation between several Finnish NGOs. There was Maan Ystävät, an environmental NGO, Nuorten Akatemia, a youth organization, Changemaker from Kirkon Ulkomaan-apu, and what else? One more, I guess. That's mostly it, I guess. Yeah. And these organizations came together and they had this idea that if possible, it would be great if we could use grassroots comics in the development education, global education work, so that it would inspire young people to make comics of their own ideas about the global injustice or justice about development issues. I will come later to that.
Oh, sorry.
So how we conduct these workshops is they take 3 hours. First there's discussion about globalization, the positive and negative effects of that. Then we show these youngsters the basic rules that Leif just showed us. And after that, they draw cartoons. They make the tiny drafts first, as you see here, very tiny papers. They are, by purpose, very tiny so that they would not make any details in them. After that, they make them to larger panels. I guess we can go forward, yeah. I will show you some of the cartoons of comics. Is it okay to say cartoons?
No.
Not really.
No.
It's like animation, maybe. Okay, yeah. Comics that these young people made. Like they were about the age 13 to 19 in secondary schools, in high schools, and in ammattikoulu, like professional schools. I guess, yeah, this one doesn't have a name. Well, I chose some without words, so you can just see. We talked about climate change also in these workshops. And, well, generally I would say that the grassroots comic method works very well with the young people in Finnish schools. First, they always say, when you come to the class and you say what this thing is all about, they say, well, I cannot draw, so I refuse to do anything. Like half of them will say this. And then you just have to convince them. about the things that have been repeated here, that with the grassroots comics, it's essential that you have your idea, your story, and this is a communication method, not form of art. Of course, if you draw very well, it's art, but the thing is that you can just make skeletons and that's okay. After that, they usually start drawing their ideas, and after a while they get very excited and very concentrated, and in the end they are really proud and really surprised of how good their comic looks like, because we make it first with a pencil and then with the black marker, and most of the students or pupils, they have not drawn anything like that, so it looks good. Yeah, this was one of the concerns of the young people. This comic is called A Shirt, and it tells a story about a shirt that is first produced somewhere, maybe in Southeast Asia. And the rest you can see, maybe I shouldn't explain it. This is one of the more artistic works, very impressive, that were made in these workshops. Not yet. Many of the pupils were keen to elaborate the subject, and you could really see that they come across TV, newspapers, internet, all kind of bad news, and they are worried, they are anxious. So this is also one way of dealing with those issues. And we also always talked about what one can do, what everybody can do to have influence on these problems, and what you can do when you grow up. So we can see some solutions in the next comic strip. So this one is called Let's Save the World by Moving, or by Motion. In the first panel there's Finland, second Bahama, then Arctic Pole, and then China. So this is very happy approach, positive approach. Can you see it down, like in the back? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, then this one is called A Choice. There is this guy thinking, which one should I take? Here we have fair trade bananas and bananas from Spain. And then banana farmer in Spain. Someone is saying to these banana farmers, here you have a couple of cents. This guy is thinking. And then the fair trade farmers, there's a guy carrying this bag of euros, lots larger bag, and then in the end this guy is opposing these fair trade bananas. So these are the small things that the pupils in, also the Finnish pupils can do. Then this one is from a workshop in Mali. I am active in a project in Mali, in West Africa, and I went there for a trip, and I thought I'd like to try the grassroots comics method there with an NGO, environmental NGO there, just with the workers there. And so they were quite free to choose the subject, and it was very interesting experience. Almost all of them said that they had never drawn before in their lives, because in school in Mali you don't draw. So it's really something special for them. So we started drawing faces and drawing skeletons, and then it was like maybe 5 hours we used to these workshops, and we were able to create comics like this one. This one is called, oh no, how do I translate that? It's in French.
Unhealthy transport of food.
Yeah, unhealthy transport of food. So this guy says, oh, there's really a lot of dust in the bread. It's not my problem, it's not me who eats it. Come here, good coffee. Yes. I'm sick because of the bread. So that experience was very, very interesting for me. And just to end with, this is a message from a 15-year-old boy in one of the workshops we had in school here.
Frank. The microphone for Frank. And as you can see, Frank has been with us since long.
Why did you say that?
It's the truth on the wall.
Well, I will first have to say I'm so glad to be with you here in Finland. And I will first have to thank the World Comics and the people of Finland for bringing me here. Thank you. I have been very happy working with Leif and the grassroots. I must say I'm not an expert in grassroots because of what I am. And I have not got any big experience in doing grassroots comics. But I'm so happy and I'm so glad that the association with Leif and the grassroots comics that we have, the workshop that we had, as you have heard Tarmo talk about, how Leif also talked about, it has helped me. It gave me an eye-opener in how to communicate with the community at a grassroots level. What I'm interested in to talk about in grassroots comics is that it works. And because you have seen samples that have been shown that it works, the final word is it has power. And if the power is there, why not use it to achieve the goals the community wants? I won't say much more than that because, as I said earlier, I'm not an expert in grassroots comics. But grassroots comics and campaign comics work together. I am more into campaign comics than the grassroots level. The difference is just a little, but the impact is very, very, very important. Because with grassroots comics, the artwork and the message comes from the artists who happen to come from the community. So they already know what they want to express. They already know why they have to take up that particular topic and express it, or ask for their rights or whatever they want to achieve. As Leif was talking about, he tried to point out or try to help an artist by pointing out a few details here. If you do this, it would rather enhance your work. And he says he still lives with that nightmare. That's the difference between campaign comics and grassroots comics. With campaign comics, these are people who already know what they want. It is the other way around. It's not the artist who knows what they want. They already know what they want. They've had their workshops, they've traveled around, they used money, they spent money, they messed things up to achieve their goal. Then they put things on paper, they give them to you, the artist, to create the best way of communicating with their public. You have to create from what they have done. They don't have any idea of what to expect. In fact, they don't have any idea of the visuals that are supposed to come from the lengthy text they have given you. So you come out, you read it, and you come up with ideas. You create a story out of them. You give them the sketch. Suddenly, they have seen pictures. Then that's where the critics come in now. They become so happy now. This is the story of, it's a campaign comics on HIV/AIDS. And the characters you see here, like this lady, is real. All the characters, all the stories here are real. These are not fictional. So before we did this, we had to travel to the area in Western Kenya. This is a comic story for MSF Spain. Medicines Sans Frontières. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the difference between campaign comics and grassroots comics. You have to make it as real as possible because these are people who think that they are more sophisticated than the community. So you give them something like that as an example. They say this is UN money we want to spend. We don't want to spend it on something like that. So we have to be as sophisticated as possible. This is another story for UNFPA. It's about, again about HIV awareness for the youth. It's a story about two girls. Then one of them, well, that's one of them. So
The sponsor.
one of them didn't take education seriously, and she went into drugs and alcoholism, and eventually she failed her exams. She couldn't make it in the future, just like the story we saw in the other story we presented from India. Then we had a campaign for the Millennium Development Goals.
Yes. You wanted to say something?
No. The next one.
This one?
This one.
Ah.
Yeah, yes.
See more.
Okay, see more. Sorry, but I didn't read the top one. I was reading this. All right. There will be an interview at 6:15 tonight. I think I will have time to talk more about this sort of comics.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
And then the exhibition, don't miss it. Frank Odoi, Sarjakuvan monitaituri, näyttely. It means exhibition of the versatile comics artist Frank Odoi. It's you. And it is already open. Good.
Okay, it's already open.
Yes. And a floor. Okay, thank you. Yes, now questions. Yeah.
I know Leif has very smooth and polite way to say, like now you have talked enough. But I would like to say something about pedagogy.
Okay.
What came to my mind when I saw Frank Odoi's cover? Can you put the cover there? Yours and Frank's book's cover? No? Back.
This one.
That one.
Okay.
Can I tell? It's only 3 minutes.
It's alright, yes. She has a comment. So it's just sit down. Or actually what we can do now is those who have made the presentation, you can come here so people can ask questions. But you can comment.
I want to tell you a story because it's interesting how the art education pedagogic system, we think it works, or I'm an art teacher as well. So it was really important when we went first time to India with Leif. He was been there earlier, but it was first time for me. And we were teaching those people in Tamil Nadu in Karasanur VCS center. And you remember that we were encouraging them to keep their stories, and we were trying to help them how they draw, but we were not careful enough. It happened that because they don't have art education in school, they didn't draw before that, maybe not at all. So what happened? We had this book, and me and Leif, we had this book, and we put this book on the table. And suddenly, in one Indian story, was one African character.
Oh,
and we were asking, like, what's happening here? Where this African comes from? What is the story about? And they were like, no, there's no African. And we were like, no, but what's the story about that? We thought this is the local story. And in the end we realized that they just copied this drawing because it's so nice. So then we learned that it's really important that how you do it, or how you show any examples, or because they are so fresh. and they get so fascinated when they see something which is nicely drawn. You remember?
Yes, I remember. But it is also this that when people copy something, it means that in one way they also accept it. That it becomes something that they take to themselves. It's not bad to copy, but because we are outsiders and we have seen the original, we read it in a different way. And that is perhaps the point here. Now, you have an opportunity to pose questions to all the 5 of us, and whatever comes to your mind, whatever was not very clear.
Okay, I could ask something about the people who showed up at the workshops. Who were those people? Like, did they come from the street or?
Well, I can answer this. It's mostly when we have this cooperation, it is with some organizations. And the organizations, they are having different level of activists. And if it is a local organization, I mean, it's, these are local people who are active in the society. If it is well, a little bit bigger organization, then perhaps the participants in the workshop, they come from some branch office, or if it's a big organization with several sub-organizations. So typically I could say, like in Burundi, we cooperated with APDH main organization, and we had 18 participants in the workshop. Half of them came from the organization itself, and the other half came from other organizations that they know and who they think that, yes, they could also benefit from this grassroots comics method. Now when we go to Kenya in 2 weeks, then same thing, the organization we cooperate with, Youth Alive Kenya, half of the participants will come from that organization, and the other half will come from organizations that they are in some sort of network with. I think this answered your question. Good. Next question. Go ahead, please.
This question is especially for those of you who have been teaching not NGO activists, but just young people or people with perhaps no idea at first what they want to tell. How do you deal with some message that might be judged to be inappropriate or injuring somebody else? For example, if somebody draws a racist cartoon or something insulting towards a group or a person, does that ever happen, or do people control themselves?
Yes.
You first.
You first. Yes.
Yeah, this is a very essential question, especially when you're working with the young people who like to rebel. Well, there have been such situations when you feel that, well, this is, I don't know, I'm not sure if I want to help this person to bring up this issue, or like, well, anyway, usually first how we do, there are a lot of moments during the workshop where you are like, where you have a chat with the person, because we tend to check the comics all the way through, like we see the draft, and after that we see the next step. So you have a chance to be there just like quite quietly with the person. So then, well, how we usually do, we ask, like, first of all, we ask what do you want to say with this, because maybe you just understand wrong something that they are saying, and then if it feels like a racist comment or something, then we try to discuss, is this a way you want to, is this a kind of profile that you want to give about yourself to the other people, and then normally then if the person insists on doing what he's doing, quite often they end up changing the subject or changing the story. But then if the person insists on doing what he's doing or she's doing, then generally we allow them to. We don't deny them of drawing, but we allow them to do. Usually they only make the draft. They are not very motivated in making the big panels. They can do it, but then just if it's very inappropriate, we just don't put it on the wall and we don't make copies of it. We don't put it to the internet. By the way, there are a lot of these comics made by Finnish youngsters in internet. You can find them in flickr.com by writing Maailman sarjakuvat. So, well, this is generally how we deal with those issues.
Katja, want to comment?
Yeah. No, I think that was very wise answer. But I would say like if there's two things: if it's gonna be published in internet or in the magazine, as you said, or if it's just going to be discussed in the group on the wall of the classroom, I would allow that, because what's better way to start the dialogue? That if somebody really wants to say something inappropriate, and if somebody really wants to stand behind that. So I think that it's a great way to start the dialogue with the group, and I would. It very hardly happens. I teach young people also, but I think the pressure in the group is that, as you said, that they will change the mind when they realize that it's something, it's only the way to provocate, and when they understand that it's also the dialogue in one person. Like once you have drawn it, you might understand that it's something you really don't want to say, that you don't really think about that. So I think it's really, really important for the young people that they can try those things, that they have the freedom to say ugly things and inappropriate, even racist things, that then there's the dialogue in one body. That it's very fruitful actually, but it's hard for the teacher.
In our workshops in Africa and Asia, this rarely happens, because the stories are read out loud and discussed before the work is done on that. Here it is different, because people work on the stories more like individual, I think.
I have one story, somehow have a little connection with this problem. In India, it was not appropriate in words, but the solution was very violent, because we had a story about Dalits who are not allowed to go through the Brahmin areas barefoot. So they had wear slippers, and it happened often that the Brahmin came and hacked with stick the Dalits who didn't wear slippers. So one guy made 3-4 panel comics about this situation, and the solution was revolution. So violently, the village of the people attacked to that Brahmin area, and we discussed together about it. What happens next? Is it good solution? Is there any other way to solve this problem? And the solution was humor. Everybody goes singing and hooking a rhythm with their slippers inside their Brahmin's house, who is the fat old man is standing on the steps and can attack all of these village people with the stick. And everybody thought, this is good solution, humor, yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes, there's another anecdote from India. There was one lady who made a story about somebody, laborer's daughter, who had been raped by the Brahmin. And then the solution or the end of the story was that the Brahmin had they went to court, and the Brahmin was directed to marry that girl. I was like, no, she has been raped by this time. Now you say that these people, they were looking at me and saying, it's different here, and you don't understand this. But it was a better solution. Still, today, I don't understand why it was better, but that was something which the majority of those who were around there could accept. This kind of cultural differences are deep, and we should be very careful of what we go out with, what's right or wrong, because we have our own ideas. We know our own thing, but not necessarily what happens in a remote village in India. Okay, any more questions, please?
Hey, is it sometime, do you do some sort of a games together, or to just find out what is the most nicest theme or the topic for the workshop? Because some people might reject the topic, or so do you come up with some sort of different ideas than just talking to find out what it would be the most hedelmällisin, fruitful topic?
Yeah. I don't know, I think like in most cases we work with organizations that know very well what they want, what is important for them, and then the themes somehow are in that, in the area, and so there's not rarely discussion, deep discussion on this, what kind of themes or stories is important, because it's already there. When we have workshops with people who are not activists, then we have this discussion. They take much longer, but we think it is important you discuss, and then people who are there, they agree, yes, these are the things, and then somebody says, no, I want to do something else. So this is what we do. So okay. It is a consensus, and I don't think it has been very difficult.
Can I ask how it has been with the youth in Finland, this theme, or concerning with the topic, or is it always in some class, like, so then the teacher has given the topic, or how does it go? Is it in the art classes or in the other classes?
It's in all different kind of classes. It depends on it's the teachers who order it.
Okay.
So it can be history, or it can be also art class, but quite seldom it is. Or it can be Finnish class, or it varies very much. But generally, the workshops that we make in Finland for young people, they are very different from the grassroots workshops in the south, because it's like the whole package comes with it. We bring the theme with us.
Okay, you bring the theme.
Yeah. So we have some PowerPoints, we have some exercises, we have something. Right now, how we do it, we have a world map, and then we give the pupils some stickers, and they have to, for example, to check where their clothes are made from the clothes, and they have to put stickers where they think that the climate change affects most on people. So we kind of make them think and discuss about these things, about development and globalization questions. So in that sense, it's different, because I think in the south, anyway, that people are a bit more free to choose their subject, even there is a general theme. I don't know. This is how I feel.
Yeah, but do you use like games and all kinds of different methods to get into the theme and get them, the youth just to think about it? I think.
Well, we could use more games, I think, than what we do now.
I mean, not games. I mean, like tasks or something like that.
Well, how we do it now is mostly what I just explained. We have this map, and then we discuss and show some pictures, some PowerPoints
Okay.
about these issues. But if you're interested to develop this, these workshops, you're very welcome to come to join. We have a group that's developing these workshops, and they will go on for the next 2 years. And there's an evaluation made in the beginning of next year, so that's a good point to develop them.
I would use also improvisation and acting out different situations, definitely.
Yeah. The thing is just that there's a limited time.
Yes, time. Yes.
And it takes about at least 2 hours to produce the comic. So
Yeah,
that
I
has
know.
been our challenge.
But seasonal teacher, I happen to know that I think you have many things to discuss. You can work together.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, one comment I could make here is that we always stress that what is important is that the one who makes the story, that it's his or her opinion that comes out. We're not like saying that, okay, here we are presenting the problem, now make a comic about it. No. I once ran a workshop in Sweden, and they said, okay, that it will be on the climate issue. So they had given a sheet of a photocopy of an article on the climate change to each of the participants. The kids, they were around, I think, maybe 20, and I came a little bit late because the plane was there and they had already distributed all these things. And I said, okay, so the theme today, what is it? And all the kids were like, so okay, if you don't think that the climate issue is important now, what do you think is important? And they were like, And then there was a short discussion, and they said, friendship. So I said, okay, we can do this climate thing later. Let's make comics on friendship. And they made very good stories, and everybody had something to say about this issue of friendship. They were like 14 to 16 years old, around that. Of course, those who had invited me, they were not happy with me. I was not invited again, but the stories were good. So I believe this, that if you point out that this is not a test, this is not something that you have to fulfill like we want you to. We want to hear your own opinion. Then it works, because it creates willingness in the person to sit down and think, what do I think is important? Okay, any more questions, please?
Can I say just one thing?
You can say.
Also something I forgot to say on my presentation. One thing that I found very essential and very great in this method is that, especially when working in schools, it gives every person an equal voice. So the more quiet, the more shy people, they can make this huge poster. Often from the quiet people, they make very strong, powerful posters, and I think that's very great with this method.
Okay, anybody else of you would like to make some comments? You have the floor. You can say something.
15 minutes to go.
15 minutes to go.
Could you please translate?
This is the cover of a book saying Comics with an Attitude. It was a book which was published more than 10 years ago about, Frank and I did it together, about how to use comics in mass communication campaigning for development purposes.
Would you like to know what they are saying?
You want the Swahili? Oh, it says that, yes. Yes, there is a meeting. Okay, let us go to the meeting. And then in this meeting, the one is explaining about corn. And then the story goes on that they discuss the corn issue more and more. And then say, we must go from this away from this meeting, we are losing valuable drinking time. It was made by Katja Tukiainen.
So I have to go now.
You are losing.
Okay, if there are no further questions, thank you all for coming here. It has been, as always, a pleasure to speak about this issue, which is, sorry. Yes, I thank you all from my heart. As always, it has been a pleasure to talk about this issue, which is in all our hearts, comics. Thank you.
Thank you.